Hello. I would like to show you a method for automating the process of taking a bunch of images, items that are on a single layer, and separating them into their own individual layers. So we'll start off by just quickly removing the background from our sample image. Now in Photoshop, the only thing that I'm aware of that even comes close to doing what we want is the crop and straighten photos effect. Um, and it's done all right there. Here we've lost the basket, even more cropping, and it's all rotated, and it's so, I mean that's not ideal. And if this image was more complicated with more items, or say everything was really tightly packed together, and there wasn't an even amount of space around each image, say something like that. If we were to try, see now we're getting, all the other balloons are, in each shot, and again we're missing the baskets. If of course there was a box around each balloon, the effect works perfectly. Each balloon is still in its correct orientation. Everything's cropped nice, except we no longer have our transparency, and we'd have to re-extract it from the background again. That's really not what we're going for, because this is what that effect is designed to do. It's designed to take, if you had scanned in a bunch of photos, and so you have a bunch of photos on one image, it'll just help you extract those into separate files real quick. What we're after is more like what we originally had. We have a bunch of transparent items on a single layer, and we want these all separated into their own layer. So how can we do that? Well, we can enlist the help of After Effects and a script called Mask to Layers, available on AE Scripts. It's a name your own price service. You could also get a free copy from a tutorial on Video Copilot. It's number 86, Fracture Design, and it also goes over a lot of detail on how to use the plugin, so that's worth a watch.
Now what we need to do is take each mask and separate it into its own layer. So each layer is its own piece.
And that's exactly what we're going to do. We are going to make masks for all of the items that we want to separate, and then use that script in After Effects to perform that separation for us. And it might sound a bit involved, but actually it is pretty easy to streamline the process. Now, of course, this is a very simple image, so we could easily do this by hand. Control-Shift-J and Control-Shift-J, and we're done. Each balloon is its own layer, and we're on our way. But we're just going to use this as a proof of concept, and then we'll try something a little bit more complicated to make sure that the process is foolproof. So to start, let's prepare our paths panel. We'll get that out here, and we'll just dock that right there. And so first thing we're going to do is Control-click on our layer, and that'll make a selection around our 3 balloons. And we're going to expand that selection a little bit. About 3 is fine. This way, since we're already on a transparent layer, we don't need to be right up next to it to cut it out. And this way, if we had a really clean crop around it, we wouldn't be doing any harm to that when we run this process. So now that we have our selection, we can go to our Paths menu and choose Make Work Path. And we'll set the tolerance as low as it can go, which is 0.5. And there we go, we've created a path where our selections were. And now to make these something that we can use in After Effects, we're going to go to Layer, New Fill Layer, and choose Solid Color. Doesn't really matter what color, we just need it to be there. So we'll click OK, and now we'll save this off. Now let's fire up After Effects. And we'll just drag our image in. And we're going to import it as a composition and click OK. And then open that up, and so now we have our original layer and our paths layer, and our paths are actually masks. And now we want to take all those masks and actually apply them to the original layer. So we can delete our color fill layer, and now our masks are on that original layer. And now we can do the really fun part. So we'll go to scripts, which is just off screen, run script, and choose the mask to layers. And there it is. It has created a separate layer for each balloon. And we can simply do composition, save frame as, again, just off screen, save as. Nah, we don't want to do file. We want to do, so save frame as Photoshop layers. And we'll just save it again. Layers, save. Minimize that, go back into Photoshop. There's our balloon layers. And we have a separate layer for each of our balloon. And now it looks like we have a tiny little empty layer. That's probably because one of our selections had a little empty selection made, and we made a fourth mask. And that's something we're going to actually talk about in our next example, which, as you might have seen, is this lovely picture of donuts. Now again, another relatively simple image. You could pretty easily do this by hand. Probably 8 or 9 clicks and you're done and on your way. And even the way it's arranged, we could probably get away with crop and straighten photos for this one. And yeah, crop and straighten did a pretty decent job because they were all evenly spaced, all about the same size, and it didn't mind separating that for us. But it was not picked because of how easy it would be to work with. It was picked because the donuts have holes in them, which if you were to make a mask for it would result in a compound shape, which won't cause any problems, but it will cause a bunch of empty layers. But let's just take a look at that. So first, again, let's just get a quick selection and remove the background here. We'll try 20. And we'll go ahead and remove all of our centers. And let's do our mask trick again. So we'll control click, expand, make work path. And there we go. We have our mask again, and we'll go to layer, new layer, solid color. Okay, and we'll save that off. Drag in our new donuts. Composition, good. And again, we're going to click on our layers. We're going to copy it, paste it. We can delete it. Just check our masks. And so as you can see, we have a mask for all the outsides, but we also have a mask for all the insides, which we don't really need, but let's just do it anyway. So we'll do File, Scripts, Run Script File, Mask to Layers. And everything still worked. We still exported all of our objects onto separate layers, so we can do composition, save Photoshop layers, donut layers, and let's take a look at that in Photoshop. And so it worked just the same as before. We got all of our donuts on separate layers just as we wanted, but we also have a bunch of empty layers because we really didn't need to make masks for all the inside holes. So if we did do that, it's not a big deal. We can just go to File, Scripts, and delete all empty layers. And that should clean up any layers that don't have any content on them. And so there we go. We have all of our donuts on their own separate layers. But now to avoid having all those extra layers in the first place, since our items have already been extracted from the background and have transparency, we don't have to worry about cutting out these middle holes. We can just do an outside selection. So we can just select the outside transparency, select the inverse, and do our same expand. Make work path, layer, new fill layer, solid color. And now we just have a solid mask around our objects. And we don't have to worry about cutting onto their inside holes because they're already cut. Alright, so let's conclude by trying something that might actually benefit from using this method. Maybe a couple billion ships. Well, maybe that's a bit much. But extracting all these onto their own layers would definitely take a few minutes if you wanted to do it by hand. Even just cleaning this up for the extraction process is going to take a few minutes. So in cooking show fashion, I have our image here already. All of our objects are properly extracted from the background, but they're all still on one layer. I have a selection layer where everything's nice and solid, so we'll just right click, we'll do our modify expand, 3 should still work, we can delete that, and now we'll make our masks. And layer, new fill layer, solid color. Alright, and let's give that a save. And our After Effects she goes. So we'll copy all of our masks. Let's see what Mask to Layers has to say about this. And there we go, just like before, all of our ships on nice little separate layers. So let's save that off to Photoshop and see what we ended up with. And there we have it, all of our ships nice and neatly separated onto their own layers. We can move them around, do whatever we need to, and we barely had to lift a finger. Alright, well I hope that helped. I hope maybe you could find a use for this, or just gave you some ideas about mixing multiple applications to solve unique problems. And that's it.